Hello, I'm Tuck S, and today I'm going to be giving you a beginner lesson on snare drum. This is a warm-up that I was taught in a high school marching band, and it carried me through high school as well as college. And this was a warm-up that was taught to me by Miss Katie Stiles, my percussion instructor. She has a master's degree in percussion, and Mr. Paul Traugott, who also has a master's degree in percussion. Both were K through 12 accredited. And this was a warm-up, like I said, that carried me through college under the instruction of Dr. Darren Kamstra. He has a DMA in percussion. So I apologize for my head being out of the shot here. I'm 6'1", and my iPad and my living room don't exactly allow me to get a full shot, but you'll get the gist of everything that's going on, so I apologize for my head being out of the picture. So we have here a marching snare drum. It's pretty standard. It's a pearl with an Evans head, standard orchestral snares on the bottom, which means they are plastic, nylon in my case. The one thing you will notice that is non-standard about my setup here is that I have my billfold sitting on the top of the snare drum. Now, reason for that, before we get started, is if you're in a confined space, like, for example, an apartment, it eliminates some of the ringing that occurs in a snare drum, especially when you have the snares off, and it doesn't make it as concussive. It's not as harmful to your ears. So, I'm going to be teaching you this warm-up today. It's called 8 on a Hand, and I'm going to run over it with you in two different styles. I'm going to run over it with you via match grip, and also via traditional grip, since it was a marching band warm-up. This warm-up is applicable not only in concert band and not only marching band. It's a good chop building exercise. So when I say chops, I'm referring to your forearm muscles. And when it comes to percussion, these muscles are something that are very integral in our playing, because if they're not strong enough, if you don't have the muscle memory, then you're not going to be able to play as quickly. So it's something that you want to build up, it's something that you want to retain, and it's something that you really don't ever want to let go. So, 8 on a Hand is precisely what it sounds like. It literally is 8 notes on one hand, and then you switch, and it's 8 notes on the other hand. However, it probably should have been called 16 on a hand, because while it is 8 in a section, you do it twice. So and you get the gist. So, before we get into the warm-up, I'd like to talk a little bit about the grips, or the hold that you have on the drumstick. So for that, I'm gonna move this guy out of the way and kind of squat here so you can see me. Alrighty. So, some basics on grip. The two basic grips that you're going to use as a snare drummer are match grip, meaning that your hands look identical, and traditional grip, which is really only for marching snare drum, meaning that the left hand, the drumstick rests across your ring finger, and underneath your pointer finger, it is overlapped by your thumb. Reason for this is, back in the day, when they had a cross sling on the snare drum, a strap, the drum would rest on your side. And when it rested on your side, the drum head pitched at about a 45-degree angle, which wasn't easy to play on with a match grip, because you had your elbows way up here and your wrists bent weird, and it wasn't cohesive. So they had to adapt. And what they did was this. One of the cool things about traditional grip that I was taught in high school is the reason they chose to rest it on your ring finger is because it is the only finger on both of your hands that is connected directly to your heart via an artery. It's also the finger you put your wedding ring on. Why? Same reason. It's connected to your heart directly via an artery. So those are your two basic grips. And for you guys out there that do know a little bit about traditional grip, I tend to play with a curved finger rather than straight finger. Some schools of thought teach that straight finger has more control over rolls, buzzes. I tend to disagree because in college, under the instruction of Dr. Darren Kamstra, I was taught that when it comes to playing snare drum, percussion in general, one thing that we strive for is constantly being in neutral. So you want your arms relaxed, just about as flat as you can get them. You don't want any weird pitches or anything weird going on with your elbow. And when you're trying to strain or keep your fingers straight when you're playing, create more tension, you take yourself out of neutral. When you play curved finger, which is naturally relaxed, your hand naturally wants to curve, you take that tension away. So you can, in effect, play quicker. So, those are basics of matched versus traditional grip. Concert, marching / drum set, if you decide to go that route. So, back to the warm-up. Alrighty. So, a good way to practice this warm-up is, as crazy as this sounds, on a pillow. The reason you want to practice 8 on a hand, on a pillow, 8 on a pillow, if you will, is because on the snare drum, you get something from the head called reverb, meaning the stick bounces back up. On a pillow, you don't get reverb, so it absorbs the shock from the drumstick, which makes your muscles work harder. So when you put it on the drum head, when you start getting reverb, you don't have to work as hard. It's like dancers training with weights on their ankles. When you take them off, it's easier to perform. So when you practice it on the pillow, it's exactly what I described in the beginning of this video. It's 8 on a hand, alternated twice, so 16 on a hand split. If that makes sense. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you stop. The trick for this warm-up is you don't just beat away at the drum at the same tempo. You run through it once, and then for me in marching band, there were taps in between that signaled that the tempo was speeding up. So you start slow, work fast, and then slow it back down. Reason being is you're warming up your chops gradually, and then afterwards you want to cool them down, because if you don't, your muscles will actually contract, and that's, firstly, it's not healthy. Secondly, it's not cohesive to good playing. So, I'm going to go ahead and run through this warm-up with the snares on the drum off first, so you can hear what it sounds like both ways. When I play through this the first couple of times, and I'm demonstrating, I'm going to play matched grip. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to go ahead and run through traditional grip for you as well. It's a little bit more of an advanced technique. You don't really use it as much in concert band, and it comes later on drum set when you become more familiar, more comfortable, and you're looking kind of to advance your playing. Again, I apologize for my head being out of the shot. So, when it comes to match grip, just one more quick thing. You don't want to choke way up on the drumstick like this, and you also don't want to be way back here. It just doesn't feel right. There's a sweet spot, and the more you practice, I think you'll find that. On Vic Firth sticks, it's right about where the T is. Now, these are Coopermans. They're some of my favorites, and they're a little bit more expensive. They're a nicer wood, but Vic Firth is what you should start with, and you want to place your your pointer finger, right on the T, and then you wrap your fingers around. You don't want to point. You want everything to be wrapped. You don't want a gap in between your thumb and your pointer finger. You want it closed. But at the same time, you don't want a white knuckle grip. You want very relaxed. You want your arms in neutral, if that makes sense. So,